Feel like we a type of tide we ain't never been. I can't see the light at the end of the tunnel yet. Feel like I ain't made for this, I ain't built to win. I'm mature enough, I ain't pure enough to be heaven sent or be militant, nah. Feel like I ain't Dr. King of another heaven yet. So don't look to me, I can't carry it. Man, I'm probably closer to a scary yet. Fighting out my fears, I still carry tears. Looking for a home for 400 years. So inside my bones, Lord, I gotta know if I'm by myself that I'm not alone. Looking at my feet, standing on the shoulders of my father's dreams and my mama's groans. Product of their hopes, they could never reach. Only see it looking through a telescope. Lord, I gotta know if we gotta go, that you got our feet. Help us keep the course that you gonna bring. Every single force, every angel in the sky making noise, every man, woman, child, every source all around the world lifting every voice.
Every voice and sea, till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun upon new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, Thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, Thou who hast by Thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in the path we pray.
Bless our feet,
Straight from the places, our God, where we met Thee,
bless our hearts.
drunk with the wine of the world, we forget Thee. Shadowed beneath Thy hand, may we forever stand.
True to our God, true to our native land.
Well, greetings and God bless. Peace, love, light, liberation, family. Welcome to the Witness of Black Christian Collective's Juneteenth virtual event, Free to Be. Last year, we started this tradition of coming together as Black Christians to celebrate freedom in our souls and our bodies. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Tyler Burns, and I have the privilege of leading the Witness, a Black Christian collective. And here at the Witness, we like to say we encourage, educate, and empower Black Christians to be free in our souls and our bodies. That means that we want to proclaim the truth of Jesus and reclaim the lost and stolen parts of our Black identities. So I want to say to Black Christians, you are welcome here. We are excited to celebrate with you, commemorate with you, and also sit in complex, complicated emotions as well. As you know, last year we started this trend of coming together, but this year it feels a little bit different because Juneteenth has just been declared as an official national holiday in the United States. This brings with it so many complex, complicated feelings. It also brings with it a little bit of uncertainty. And all that is welcome here. I want to hold space for everyone who is feeling the complicated, complex emotions of celebration, of angst, of anguish, of frustration, whatever it may be, it's welcome here. We believe that God desires us to walk in freedom, not just simply in our souls, but in our lived realities as well. We believe in an integrated gospel, connected, embodied theology. So as a result, you're going to see some incredible things today that hopefully will encourage you and uplift you, give you the strength to continue on. We're going to have some worship, some creative conversations, and yes, some special guests that are going to help us to dream and imagine what it looks like for us to have true Black Christian freedom. And so I hope you stay tuned and you have an expectant heart. But before we get into it, let me go ahead and pray for us, because we want to always invite the Spirit of God to be in this place, whether physical or virtual. God in heaven, we ask that you would be with us, that you would set us free holistically, that we would be able to live in everything you have called for us to live into, do everything you've called for us to do, have everything you've called for us to have. And I pray for Black Christians who are feeling complex emotions. I pray that this will be a time of encouragement and uplift for them, that they would be able to walk in it and do whatever you have called for them to do. And also feel like they're seen. Also feel like there's a God in heaven who sees, knows, and loves. We thank you for this and ask your Spirit to abide here. In Jesus' name, amen, amen. Well, before we get into our program, I do want to frame something and tell you that we're going to be blessed in worship today by the City of Truth worship team from the City of Truth Church in Kansas City. And I'm going to tell you, it's a phenomenal church, vibrant church, hopping church, led by two of my friends, Pastor Armour and Jessica Stevenson. And I've known them for about a decade, look up to them, follow them, learn so much from them, and I am proud and privileged to call them friends. And so if you are looking for a virtual church, check out City of Truth Church, young, vibrant, Black, phenomenal church. And they are going to bless us in worship today. So get ready. I hope your mind is filled with knowledge and it's also renewed. I hope your soul is enriched and your body is valued as you continue to walk in holistic freedom. It's Freedom Day, y'all. Happy Juneteenth.
people say, everybody say Jesus, 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 Jesus. Lily in the valley, bright and morning star. Jesus, 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 Jesus. Said the more I call on you, the better I feel, Jesus. Jesus, 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 Jesus. He's my way in, my way through, my way over, Jesus. Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Everybody lift your voice and call on the righteous name of Jesus. Jesus. Said the more I call you, the better I feel. Jesus. Demons run, they got to flee, Jesus. 'Cause there's power in your holy name, Jesus. There's joy in the holy name of Jesus. There is peace in the holy name of Jesus. There is love in the holy name of Jesus. Jesus, Jesus, no name like yours. Yeah. Jesus, 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 Jesus. Call the name of Jesus. He is our healer. Call the name of Jesus. He is our provider. Call the name of Jesus. He is our protector. Call the name of Jesus. He is our deliverer.
I'm Adam Keeley in Fort Myers, Florida, and you're watching Free to Be, powered by The Witness, a Black Christian collective.
Every year, Black communities and families pause to recognize this oldest commemoration of the end of slavery, a celebration called Juneteenth. But in 2021, many of us are still unaware of its history. Centuries ago, enslaved Africans were viciously abducted and trafficked to these shores. After being sold as property, dehumanized, and treated like animals by wicked slaveholders, our people were desperate for freedom. In the middle of the Civil War, a conflict fought over the right to own Black bodies. President Abraham Lincoln issued an executive proclamation declaring that enslaved Africans were to be freed, effective on January 1st, 1863. Without a communication mechanism to hear this for themselves, our people were unaware of this proclamation until June 19th, 1865. On this day, a Union general made the official announcement in Galveston, Texas, 1,000 days after the original proclamation. Originally, we used spiritual language to describe this day, calling it Jubilee Day. But as we are known to do, Black people flipped the language to embody the concept with a little bit more flair, renaming our Freedom Day Juneteenth. From 1866 until now, celebrations have been scattered throughout the country to recognize our Independence Day. From church celebrations, family cookouts, history, and education, we gather together to live freely, echoing the centuries of our people. Juneteenth matters. It should be a national holiday. Yes, it is the oldest celebration of the end of slavery in the United States, but it is so much more than just a day. Juneteenth is an exercise in memory. Though slavery is something we would like to forget, our ancestors persevered for a free future many of them would never see. Like the saints in the Holy Scriptures, they believed the promise of liberty and justice would one day be true for them. Juneteenth is a day to remember them and their tireless pursuit of freedom for us. As our founder, Jemar Tisby, has beautifully written, commemorating Juneteenth as a national holiday would both amplify the agency of Black people in securing the end of race-based chattel slavery, while also motivating present-day activism for securing the full independence and equality of all people. As image bearers of the divine, Black people have a right to flourish in every area of our lives. On Juneteenth, we recommit to this legacy and remind ourselves that regardless of what this country may say or do, we will be free to live, free to flourish, and free to be.
Hanging out with Allie Henney. Allie is one of my favorite people. So I'm always glad when I get to kick it with Allie. Allie, so like this year we're doing Free to Be again, take 2. But it's like a whole different Free to Be than it was before. And I guess we've been looking at the idea of freedom, which is all about, Juneteenth, and which was Jubilee, is all about, our freedom. But what does it mean to be, like, what is, like, free to be? Like, what can it mean? I feel like, what does the idea of freedom look like? Especially in a Black Christian context, what does freedom mean?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So for me, freedom means expanding our imagination. So sometimes I think that Black people in particular, but Black Christians even specifically, we put ourselves in boxes and we say that, well, we can only think this certain way. We can only move through the world in a certain way. And so whenever I think of free to be, I think of freedom to expand our imagination. What would it look like for Black Christians to think about the Word of God, to think about Jesus, to think about our own liberation as a people in an imaginative way, in a way that encompasses the fullness of the Black experience, that then we're looking at that through the lens of Scripture, we're looking at that through our culture, we're looking at that through the vast treasury of our history and the things that our ancestors have left us.
That's great. That's like so wild to think about, though, because as a culture, we are wildly imaginative.
We really
like
are.
In clothes and food and you know what I mean? Like on and on and on and on. We're crazy imaginative, and then it kind of falls flat in other areas, like where we're just like, oh, we're gonna leave that at the door, and then just like whatever. That's a wild thing to think about. How does it? Because I mean, I think you embody this with your work, and you've brought it to the witness. But like, how have you been able to merge those two worlds together? How have you been able to learn to bring your whole self into that, like that imagination and sort of that just like you've made up words and trends and hashtags and things like that. So how have you been able to bring those two worlds together personally, do you feel like?
Yeah, well, in the work that I do with the witness specifically,
Yeah.
I've really tried to think outside of the box and try to think outside of just kind of the normative cliches and what would it mean, where the line is, like where we say, oh, well, we couldn't possibly do that, or we couldn't possibly, can Christians think this way? Should Christians think this way? I've taken that and said, well, why can't we? What prevents us? What's preventing us from thinking about our own liberation? What is preventing us from thinking about our relationship with Christ? What's keeping us from thinking about the Scripture in an expansive way? Like, where is the line? And then how can we push that line? And maybe we push the line and we get into something that's like, ooh, no, we don't want none of that. like we don't want that energy.
Right.
That's bad energy. That's not good. But then what does it look like to expand the lines of our theology and say, what could be possible? What's possible? So an example of that I think about the work of Christ on the cross. Typically a lot of Christians, a lot of Black Christians think of the work of Jesus as, Jesus came and he died for our sins, and they think, John 3:16, and that's great, that's wonderful. But I don't take credit for coming up with this at all. There are forefathers and foremothers who have thought of this. I'm just standing on their shoulders.
Yeah.
But what does it look like to think of the work that Christ did on the cross, to think of who he was in his historical frame as being a man who was punished and who was lynched by the state? And what does that then mean for Black Christians? So we can sit and say, yes, he saved my soul, he saved whatever, but what does that mean for us now? What does that mean for us, not just in the sweet by and by, which is wonderful, which is great. We need to think about that. but what does that look for us now? And then how does that inform how we move through the world now? And so like James Cone in God of the Oppressed and in Black Theology and Black Power, and also in a Black Theology of Liberation, he touches on this some. I believe that M. Sean Copeland, I believe that she touches on this some, specifically with the Eucharist, with communion, in enfleshing freedom. And so I say all that to say that I think that there is so much out there that Black Christians have kind of, it's like we're afraid of breaking something. We will break the rules of music. We will break the rules of fashion. We will break the rules or whatever, but there's still something in the Black Christian mind that says, oh no, we're gonna somehow like break theology. Like you can't break God. God is all being, all knowing, all powerful. And so I don't think that he's offended by us using the imagination that he gave us, using our sanctified imagination to imagine possibilities and possibilities for our own liberation. Yeah. Whom the sun sets free is free indeed. So let's set ourselves free.
I like that. As you know, I do comedy and stuff like that. And I also feel like I get nervous sometimes when I'm like, where's the line? And I don't want to, people to be offended because, at the end of the day, I do love the Lord and I love the word, you know what I mean? And as we explore what it looks like to incorporate our imagination and our rights into theology and all these things, it's quite a journey. So I appreciate that inspiration. It's real motivational. And I do want to, we're embodying that with the work of the Witness with Black Women Plant Seeds, Non-Toxic Masculinity. These are great columns that people should check out that explore that even more. So I hope you guys are just enjoying the Free to Be, and we'll talk to you soon.
We call our food soul food.
Cheers.
This type of food, you can feel when you eat it.
Ah, that aroma.
The truth is, a lot of American food has its roots in African American food, traditions, and ingenuity.
Can you see it already smells like mac and cheese? This standard yummy dish has a really old history.
I'm Steven Satterfield, and I'm on a journey to uncover the stories of African American food and meet the new generation preserving our history.
We charred and dressed this beautiful cabbage with pear preserves.
Okra is African because it made the voyage with us.
It did. We brought it to the New World.
Despite the fact that we were in hell, we were suffering, somehow in all of that nonsense, we created a cuisine.
Is this something that would have been served to Jefferson and Washington by their enslaved chefs?
Absolutely. Hercules and Hemmings were foundational to the foods that we love today.
When you understand your history and understand where you come from, that understanding gives you purpose.
Trying to keep the culture going is a blessing.
Your turnip greens have transported me back in time.
We have a deep tradition that you're honoring in a place like this.
But our legacy isn't found in statues or history books. It lives on in the people who guard the gates of our culture.
Wow, this is a showstopper.
Our story is America.
Well, greetings and God bless. Welcome to another live-ish episode of Pass the Mic, Dynamic Voices for a Diverse Church. We are, of course, powered by The Witness, a Black Christian collective. I'm your host, Tyler Burns. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Please don't forget about the gram, @BurnsClan. Follow at your own risk. And I am joined by the founder of The Witness BCC, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Blue Check Verified himself, the two-time best-selling author. I got to put in all of his accolades. The two-time best-selling author, Mr. Blue Check Verified himself, Jamar Tisby. What's going on, brother?
Happy Juneteenth. This is an incredible occasion.
Yeah, man.
The first that we're recording where it's actually a federal holiday. So official.
We're going to get into that, okay? Number one, I hope all of y'all have enjoyed everything that we have presented so far. It's not going to be over after we finish this particular portion, but I hope you've enjoyed Free to Be. And our heart behind it is presenting and giving a place for Black Christians to truly step into their freedom in souls and in bodies. And so as we think about that, our heart and our hope is that if you see it modeled, you can actually live it, right? It's one thing to be set free. It's another thing to stay free. And so we're trying as best as we possibly can to walk in that freedom, not just proclaim it on one occasion, but we're here to talk about Juneteenth and its historical and also future implications. There are some implications based upon the fact that Juneteenth is being celebrated more now than it ever has been. There's some commodification that's taking place. There's some political posturing that's happening. There's a lot of what we ask for versus what y'all say y'all gonna give. We're gonna get into all that because, bro, this is significant, right? Talk about the history of this. Talk about the history.
Right. So a lot of what's happening right now is Juneteenth explainers. In the last year, it's really incredible how much momentum this has picked up. But I would imagine most people at this point know Juneteenth is a mashup of the words June and 19th. It is, the short version is, it's the day in 1865 when enslaved Black people in Galveston, Texas, learned of their emancipation. Now there's a little bit more to it. Can I geek out for a second?
Go ahead. Roots. Go ahead, Mr. Roots.
So Major General Gordon Granger, who was stationed in Louisiana, took over Union forces in Texas. And early in his arrival is when he gave the announcement. And it's General Order Number 3. And I want to read General Order Number 3. It's just a paragraph. And it says, "The people of Texas are informed that, in accordance with a proclamation from the Executive of the United States, all slaves are free. This involves an absolute equality of personal rights and rights of property between former masters and slaves, and the connection heretofore existing between them becomes that between employer and hired labor. The freedmen are advised to remain quietly at their present homes and work for wages. They are informed that they will not be allowed to collect at military posts and that they will not be supported in idleness, either there or elsewhere, by order of Major General Granger, June 19th, 1865.
Look, so there's a lot of layers to that, okay? There's a lot of layers to them saying, okay, now that's your employer. There's a lot of layers to them saying free people need to stay where they were bound. There's so many different layers. As a historian, as you're processing this, what stands out reading that and historically interpreting what's happening and taking place in that moment?
So it is significant. Let us not take away anything from the fact that enslaved people were now legally free. The timing, okay? So let's back up a little bit. The timing, June 19, 1865. Emancipation Proclamation goes into effect January 1st, 1863. So this is 2.5 years later, right? And then even on top of that, in April, the defeated Confederate General Robert E. Lee surrenders at Appomattox in Virginia. So this is 2 months after essentially the surrender of the Confederate forces. And this is finally when enslaved Black people in Texas are learning about it. But then you get to the actual general order and you can feel the fear from white people, right? Like even Union forces. So this talks about what I would call the uneven support of the Union, Northern white people, and abolitionists, right? Because just because you wanted to abolish slavery did not mean you wanted Black equality. So this is how it shows up in the language. It says essentially, it's important that they talked about absolute equality of personal rights and property. That's significant, right? That's significant. So it's not just freedom, but it's equality. But as is the case throughout US history, they were hedging on freedom for Black people. And they went and they said, you are advised to remain quietly at your present homes and work for wages. In other words, keep working for now your former slaveholder but do so for wages. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Can you imagine being told to stay on the plantation, but they're going to pay you now? Like it's going to be a good working relationship at that point. Then they went further and they're playing on this trope that is going to grow and pick up momentum during the Jim Crow era, that Black people are lazy and they actually needed slavery to keep them working. So it says in this part, number one, don't come to the Union military posts expecting help. We're not going to do anything for you, right? And then number two, you will not be supported in idleness, either there or elsewhere. Idleness. Y'all Black people, just because you're free now, don't be lazy. Nobody's going to pay for you. So even in a contemporary way, right? We hear all these tropes about welfare and Black people just living off of the government, right? And you can trace it all the way back even to the announcement on what we now call Juneteenth. So,
man, I want to talk a little bit more about the hedge. And we're talking about how positions and people in power, status quo systems, administrations, well-meaning as they may appear to be, chosen as we may have done with them in a particular context, they hedge between amelioration, pacifying us, and actually providing for us all of the liberation that we need and desire. And it's in that space where I think many of us find ourselves, right? Because I think there's becoming a consensus, as we've been talking about Leave Loud and some of the other things, there's coming to a consensus that many Black Christians, perhaps more than have been in the past few years, 5, 6 years, are saying now is a time to leave, to exit, not just quietly, but to truly leave loud towards spaces of freedom, healing, and wholeness. But what happens when you're declared to be free, or you make the declaration of freedom, and freedom is not actually realized in your life? And so I think a lot of us are in this Juneteenth. Last year, it felt like it was a refreshing celebration. It felt like it was like water on our souls in the midst of a pandemic, after, racial terror, all these things that were happening. It felt like Juneteenth was a celebratory occasion. Now it feels celebratory, but it also feels commodified and polluted. And it feels like there are a lot of people whose hands are in it that we didn't want, and a lot of people who are celebrating that we didn't ask. And so now we're asking the question, did this holiday get gentrified? Did we actually work backwards, right? And I think it's in the hedge, in that middle portion between being delivered and actually staying free, actually walking in that deliverance, that a lot of us find ourselves. And it's quite similar to how enslaved Africans found themselves right after, because they weren't entering into a place of fully realized freedom. They were entering into a place of being marginalized in more creative ways.
Right.
And so I think it's incumbent upon us to say, as Black Christians, as those who are committed to the call of Christ and walking in full and total freedom holistically, we now have to prepare for the hedge. We now have to prepare for the transition period. We now have to prepare for what we've called on the podcast, the wilderness, right? And it's in that preparation where so much is realized. So I would love to talk a little bit more about that hedge, because I think that's where we find ourselves now.
I think what you're bringing up is a really important concept. And maybe if we can get it in our brains that freedom is not a binary, that there are various forms of freedoms and unfreedoms, right? So it's not like flicking on a switch and flicking it off, free, not free. Abolish slavery, now you're free. Race-based chattel slavery, you're not free. It's not just a light switch that you flick on and flick off. It's more like a dimmer switch.
Right. Right. Yeah.
It's more like the volume knob, right? And at some times in our history, you turn that knob on freedom up a little more. Sometimes it goes back. And it was, I believe, Angela Davis that said freedom is a constant struggle, right?
Yes.
And so it is incumbent upon us to always be struggling to keep and to extend our freedom. But I think I even find myself getting into a place of complacency to say, okay, this law was passed or this event happened. Now we're done. We're moving on from that part, right? But the reality is, any ground we gain for freedom is ground we have to keep and keep pushing forward for more freedom.
And I also want to hold space for those who have complicated feelings around today, right?
Yes.
Who have complicated feelings of celebration and happiness and achievement, especially if they felt as though Juneteenth should have always been a national holiday. And those who also feel the concern and complexity that the people who perhaps we voted for or placed in positions of power are underwhelming us, right? They're not providing for us what we have asked for them to in that particular sphere. And also those who feel the complicated feelings of, yes, leave these churches that are propagating, racism and xenophobia and bigotry, but our churches that we would like to go to are themselves not operating in ways that are fully welcoming, and they're not operating in ways that are healthy. So I think there's this sense of many of us also feeling complicated. And it reminds me of, I believe it's Psalm 137, where the question that the psalmist asked is, how do we sing songs in this strange land? How do we sing the song of the Lord in this strange land? How do we sing a song of freedom? How do we celebrate when we get a holiday over here, but history is being removed from our children's education over there?
Yeah.
How do we celebrate when there's this vocalizing of Black voices, this platforming of Black voices in entertainment and Hollywood, and politicians like to partner with them, but they're not passing laws that protect our votes? How do we sing this song? It's a strange land. How do we sing of freedom in a land where freedom is not fully realized? And so I want to hold space for that, because I think that's where a lot of us are. A lot of us are feeling the complex, complicated feelings of what it truly means to sing, and to sing of freedom in a land that's strange.
Let's talk about that complexity, because there's so many layers to it.
Yeah.
I'm a guy who wrote in my first book, The Color of Compromise, why Juneteenth should be a national holiday. And I talked about the significance of the history. It's one of the most important historical events in our nation's history. I talked about the fact that it would be an occasion to look back with somberness on race-based chattel slavery and the heinous things that human beings can do to one another, as well as an opportunity to look forward in terms of assessing where we are now and what work still needs to be done. And here we are, just days past it actually becoming a federal holiday. And I write my first opinion piece for the Boston Globe, and it's the unintended consequences of making Juneteenth a federal holiday. Right? And I talk about, and we've talked about, and we've seen on social media talking about what happens when you take an event, an annual remembrance that was primarily centered in Black communities, and make it mainstream.
Yeah.
We've talked about the commercialism. We can talk about the hypocrisy.
Yes.
I can't remember the last time something unanimously passed in the Senate.
Yeah.
We know how polarized the parties are right now. In the Senate, this bill to make Juneteenth a federal law passed unanimously, which is almost a slap in the face, because it's these same GOP senators who are supporting bills in their own states or at the federal level against things like critical race theory or teaching the 1619 Project, initiatives at the very core that are trying to excavate and reveal the ways racism operates. And here they are passing a bill to make Juneteenth, about the abolition of slavery and emancipation, a law, right? So what are we to make of that? In addition, they refuse to pass at a federal level, which is really at this point the only thing that will help. They refuse to pass at the federal level voting rights protections.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So at the top, when we talked about, okay, you're not just free, but you're free and equal. A big part of that throughout U.S. history for Black people has been the franchise, the ability to vote. And yet now it is under attack and embattled in a way that we saw 50, 60 years ago during the civil rights movement. On top of that, the momentum that made Juneteenth a federal holiday in 2021 is the protests and uprisings in 2020, which were against anti-Black police brutality. But we can't get significant reform, revolution, defunding, refunding, directing funding to different areas,
all of it.
dismantling. We can't reimagine public safety because the very people who are voting for Juneteenth to be a federal holiday refuse to see the deeper, and it's a question of freedom, like you were saying before, right? Like, it is a question of freedom. Yes, race-based chattel slavery was abolished, which actually took a constitutional amendment, the 13th Amendment, to actually legally abolish slavery. But of course, we know there was the clause in there that said, unless you were convicted of a crime, right? Which led to things like convict leasing and other forms of unfree labor. So in the midst of all of that, again, it's not a light switch. You're free, you're not free. There are ways that Black people are still not free. And the people who are supporting a federal Juneteenth holiday are still opposing that freedom. And that's why I think there's so much conflict and ambivalence around it, at least in the political realm.
You know, as we kind of talk about some ways that we can navigate this well, which is always what we try to do when we have a Pass the Mic episode, we're trying to talk about the historic reality, the theological realities and background, but also we're trying to talk about what's practically applicable for the Black Christian and how we can actually live. And I just want to first provide an encouragement, because that's what we do. I want to encourage Black Christians that, you know, what you feel in your body doesn't necessarily have to come to a conclusion or to a summation in this season. And it's okay if it doesn't. It's okay if your feelings are open-ended. It's okay if your thoughts are open-ended. You know, I want to encourage Black Christians to pursue this state of not feeling rushed to land and come to conclusions about things that people have been wrestling about for years and decades, and our ancestors fought to see realized. But sit in that and sit in that together, not by yourself, because you're not alone. And I want to make this encouragement because I think it's so important for Black Christians to hear, I'm not alone. It's not just me. It's not just my thoughts. There are others who think this. There are others who feel this. There are others who are navigating this. And in the midst of that navigation, what we find is there is a community, there is a journey, and there are people that are navigating this together. And so we come together on events like this just so that you can feel that encouragement, right? You can feel that sense that in my body, I sense the people of God with me. But not just that, I also want to encourage Black Christians to use your voices. And I know this seems like we've been saying this for a while, but I tend to think that many of us, no matter how many times we hear it, need to hear again that your voice is valid, it matters, it needs to be heard. When you speak, people will listen. Just because you don't have the education that other people have, or the experience that other people have, or the power positions that other people have, or the title that they have, does not mean that you are not important in the conversation that is taking place right now. And I have gotten so much encouragement, help, understanding, knowledge from Black Christians, just following Black Christians who speak. And so if you have something to say it, please. Please say it. Please talk about it. Please continue the conversation, because it's not just those people like Jamar who are writing about this in The Color of Compromise and in other spaces, not just the activists. It is the groundswell of attention and the groundswell of conversation that people had about Juneteenth that pushed people and moved them into action. And it's the same groundswell that's going to get the voting rights laws passed. It's the same groundswell that's going to change your educational system in your community. It's the same groundswell that promotes hope and healing and justice and flourishing for your neighbors. So please speak. You know, yes, be in your body, but also speak. We want to hear what you have to say. And this is a time where we hope that Black Christians leave from this and feel like, oh, I have something to say, and it's valid that I say it.
This is an element of freedom to claim and reclaim our voices.
Yes.
Because an element of bondage is to steal your voice or to undermine your voice. I don't believe any of us are voiceless. I believe we've been muffled or we've been muted. But an element of freedom is realizing that I can whisper, I can talk, or I can shout, and that's valid. Do your homework, right? Be wise, but you do have a voice. And I think part of claiming our freedom is claiming our perspectives as valid, as legitimate, as worthy to be heard.
Yes.
Because for so long we've received messages that we should not be heard.
And I was just going to say, that's what we do here. We want to proclaim and reclaim. That's what we say. We proclaim the truth of Jesus, and then we also reclaim the lost and stolen parts of our Black identities. And so in that proclaiming and reclaiming, there's this constant push-pull of times when we speak, times when we step back, times when we study, times when we get involved in the work, times when we need to rest and heal and be in our bodies and just hear the voice of God and be refreshed. All of the above. I just want to say, I believe I am stunned by how many people I talk to, how many Black Christians who are so gifted, so capable, so powerful, so right now for this moment, who question whether or not anybody will listen to what they have to say. And I don't know why I feel led, but I just feel led to tell you, go ahead and say it. Just go ahead and do it. Go ahead and write that article. Go ahead and start that podcast. Go ahead and send that email. Go ahead and set up that meeting. Go ahead and start that venture. And again, there's something in me that says someone came to this needing to hear. Just do it. We need it. Your people are waiting for it.
The prophets are never popular. So
Come on.
There's an element of counting the cost, right? Like just because you claim and reclaim your voice doesn't mean people will hear you. Those are two different things, right? But at the same time, Tyler, I think you and I can both attest, there is a liberty that we experience when we speak from our souls. When we take off the filter that the sort of white gaze has put on us and can speak authentically. Here's the thing that for me is the constant struggle, but also in the sense when I've been able to meld these things together, it's been so powerful, is there's not a separation between my Christianity and my Blackness.
Come on.
Because within Christian circles, we've been told for so long that one is subordinate to the other. When we are integrated human beings, we are integral, holistic beings, right? And if we actually believe a theology of the body, then there's not this stark separation between what I believe and how God has enfleshed me. And therefore how I maneuver in and experience the world, which then gives me my perspective, which we're calling a voice, right? And so when we say speak, we're saying feel free to offer your perspective as this integrated being of body, mind, soul, emotions. And everything that comes out of that amidst the cacophony of voices that are telling you, no, if you want to speak, you have to separate or subordinate your racial, ethnic, and cultural identity, when in fact we can't understand the world apart from it. and through the lens of our Christianity as well. So I don't know if that made any sense, but
That's so good, bro.
But you know, what you're saying
offer
is,
all of it.
Is resonating in my soul, right? It's that proclaiming and reclaiming of which you speak.
And don't think we don't have to go through that too. Like the people who you look up to, or the people who lead movements or run organizations, we have to go through the same exact wrestle. And so again, maybe it's not speaking something, maybe it's offering something, like you were saying. I love that, right? Maybe it's your art, maybe it's your, you know, your presence, whatever it is. We need that right now in this moment to truly be free, because freedom is not just about me. It's not just about a group of people I know. It's about all of us. It's about truly the collective.
The collective.
Walking in freedom. Freedom for some people, they were able to run from the border states and get to the Union quickly. The freedom for those in the South, took them a while. So you may be close, you may be on the border, or maybe you may be in the back. Okay, don't make me preaching here.
Come on. You brought the history. I'm like, come on.
Look, you may be right there. You may be one of the, however many thousands that were able to just cross on over and run and put on them Union uniforms. Or you may be those who just heard about it and all you could do is celebrate, even though you were late. It's all valid, y'all. It's all valid. We just want to come on and encourage you with that, man. We just want to encourage the people who are in the midst.
Yeah.
And that's all of us walking together, searching for what Jesus would have us to see and do. So, Jay, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for hopping on.
Appreciate you. I always am fascinated by where these conversations start and where they end up. But this has been balm to my soul. And brother, it feels like freedom. Happy Juneteenth.
Feels like freedom. Happy Juneteenth, y'all.
Hi, I'm Bria Perry in Raleigh, North Carolina, and you are watching Free to Be, powered by The Witness, a Black Christian collective.
How is Aretha doing?
Aretha's doing all right.
Just all right. Singing is sacred, and you shouldn't do it just because somebody wants you to. What's most important is that you are treated with dignity and respect.
You're special, Ree. You have a talent they call genius.
You better think about what you're trying to do to me.
How old is she? She's 10, but her voice is going on 30, honey.
Let your mind go, let yourself be free. How many albums have you had? 4. And no hits.
I need you to focus and avoid frivolous distractions.
Honey, find the songs that move you. Until you do that, you ain't going nowhere. I need a change. I want to sing what I want to sing.
Okay.
Find out what it means to me.
You really like it?
We love it.
Riri.
Riri.
It's really good.
R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Find out what it means to me.
I got a single by this new chick named Aretha Franklin.
To present Aretha Franklin Day.
You're not about to mess this up for me.
Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Aretha Franklin.
This song goes out to anyone who's ever felt mistreated.
I used to feel sure.
You need to take a break.
I know how to run my business.
Have you lost your mind?
Maybe I found it.
I believe I have the chills.
Do you see what she is? She's a miracle.
Well, it is my honor to welcome to this Juneteenth Free to Be event my colleague, the executive director of the Witness Foundation, the Reverend Dr. Shannon Polk. Shannon, it's so good to be on with you.
It's good to be on with you too, Tyler. What's happening?
Listen, Shannon.
We actually get to meet each other face to face. You know, we actually haven't been face to face or in the same room, man.
That's what I was going to say, because Shannon and I have gotten really close in a short period of time, but we have never met each other in person, face to face. And she has been doing a phenomenal job with the Witness Foundation. About eight or so months ago, in October of last year, we officially launched the Witness Foundation, and Shannon and her team have been leading us so well in the philanthropy space. And the first project that they're on is the Witness Fellowship program, where they're looking for, and they were looking for, I should say, which is great, 5 Black Christian leaders. And we have so many exciting things to announce about that, so that they could give $100,000 to them over the course of 2 years. This is big. It's huge, Shannon. During a pandemic? Come on now. During a pandemic, Doc?
Okay, yeah. It is a big deal. It's a big deal. But, you know, one of the things that one of our team members kept reminding me is that we serve a generous God. We serve a very generous God, and we can't have a scarcity mindset, even though we're in the middle of this very tragic event that's happening globally, but to always remember that God always provides, and to keep
That's
that
so
in
good.
the forefront. And so at times when I was like, are we gonna do this? Is this gonna happen? I was like, wait, hold up. God hasn't changed. Things may have changed for me. Things have not changed for the Lord I serve. So
that's my Pentecostal. That's my Pentecostal sister. Okay, right? That's that. It's rising up. I feel it. The faith, the gift of faith. I love it. It's so amazing that Jamar really put out this challenge for us to raise $500,000 in the Will You Be a Witness campaign. It was an audacious goal, it was a bold goal, but just as you said, we had this mentality. All 3 of us kind of came together and said, God can do this. And we believe that our audience will respond, and that the people, many of whom are watching right now, will be able to latch on to this vision, and will be able to join us and link arms with us, both figuratively and literally as well, to fund these fellows, and also the overarching mission of the Witnessing. How do we do, Shannon? How do we do in the Will You Be a Witness campaign?
Man, let me tell you what, as we like to say in that Pentecostal tradition, God showed up and he showed out. We met our goal. So you're talking about starting in October of 2020 in the middle of a pandemic. And then by May 1st, we had raised $500,000.
Wow.
And that is it's incredible to believe that. When I talked with people that are professional fundraisers, I said, okay, so now how do you do a campaign? And they looked at me, they're like, wait, how do we do this? I said, well, I'm coming to my friends, you all are experts, how do we do this? And they looked at me like, well, I hope you make it, but this is how it's supposed to go, right? And I'm just so excited to say that what we did was we reached out to folks and said, will you give? We have a program that people felt passionate about, a mission that people connected to. We were talking and I said, people hear about us through Pass the Mic. That's the doorway for folks. They listen to you, they listen to Jamar, they're like, they're doing what? What is this? How can I be connected? Because people want to be connected to what God is doing. And so they showed up. One of the things that I love was that when we look at the people that are giving and supporting the work of the Witness Inc., right? The overarching organization for both of our divisions, 40% of the people that are donating are monthly givers.
Wow.
That means that they're putting us in their monthly budget. And that to me speaks volumes about the work that we do, but also about their faithfulness. We refer to them as the faithful witness. You need those faithful witnesses. They're going to undergird everything that's going on. That's going to undergird the podcast. They're going to undergird the work of the fellows, the things that are happening in that support. And so I'm just blessed. And what we found out when we were looking at that data is that 95% of the people that give to us are individuals, families, single people that are giving. And that is phenomenal that we're doing all of this work without some major grant from a foundation.
Right.
Or some major corporate sponsor. It's just people all across the country saying, I care about this. Whether they're giving $10,000 or $10.
There were some stories and there were some moments where people put descriptions or they put little comments in the giving sections, and a member of the finance team at the Witness Inc. would share that with us. And I was so moved and so emotional that people cared enough about what we're doing here. It just seems so overwhelming that people care enough that they feel a part of this work. And they also feel like their families are a part of this work. Some were dedicating in the names of loved ones who had passed because they said they would have wanted me to give to this endeavor, this mission. And some of them were, dedicating in the name of children. It was just a lot. It was so much. I was blown away by it. And I was humbled that our audience is so invested in what we do that they felt it necessary to give and to invest into what we're doing. Shannon, can you talk a little bit, and I've had you talk about this before, but before we get to a fellowship announcement, which is so exciting, can you talk a little bit about Black philanthropy and why this is so important for Black Christian leaders to be fully funded and to have the resources that many of us do not have when we start our endeavors?
Sure. And I'm going to start with a point that I think that now we can talk about widely, and that's the Tulsa Massacre, the destruction of Black Wall Street. And to me, that's really critical to understand. I was watching one of the documentaries and one of the TV specials that was interviewing this woman. She owned a beauty salon. But apparently her great grandfather had owned a barber shop on the same street. But it was burned down and it was lost during the massacre, right? When racist folks came in and burned down businesses. And they talk about all of the financial loss that occurred within the Black community, right? So here's this woman who would have inherited a business had that business been allowed to flourish, but instead she's starting over again. And then because she did not own the space where she was, the rent got increased to the point where she had to move out.
Wow.
And so when we think about Black folks generationally having to start over from scratch again and again and again, whether because of an event like the Tulsa Massacre, whether it's because of redlining, whether it's because all of those different things that happened that legally occurred on this soil that prevented us from doing the simple thing of passing down wealth from generation to generation. Yes. So what happens is that whereas our white counterparts are getting money because the GI Bill worked for their grandfathers. So they were able to buy houses, they were able to purchase land, they were able to pass on that wealth generationally. We have to start over again because there were highways that raised entire Black communities. And so therefore those people had to move and didn't have that wealth to pass on. And so it's not that we don't have Black leaders in our community, it's that those Black leaders aren't being funded.
Come on.
Because they weren't able to reach back and say, hey, mom, dad, can you buy that house for me? I have friends, their parents just bought them a house. They graduate from college and their parents just write a check and say, we don't want you to have any debt when you get started. Most of the Black folks I know did not have that blessing. Not because their parents didn't want to do that for them, because they couldn't, because they didn't have generations of wealth that could be passed on. Right. And so what we're saying in the mission of this is to say, look, when you think about what it means to fund in a way that promotes justice and equity, that provides for the social uplift of a community, you have to look at philanthropy as that vehicle. Not the only vehicle, but certainly a key vehicle. And when you look at philanthropy at large, you can look and it's documented that organizations that are Black-led and serving predominantly Black communities do not get funded at the same level as their white peers. And they're
100%. Yes. Yes.
And so what we're saying is enough. Enough. You can't say you're committed to the promotion of what Christ wants to do in the earth and yet still be comfortable with that level of inequity. When it is measurable and it is visible, and with your contribution, it is actionable. We can do something. This isn't pie in the sky. This is something that can be done and can be addressed.
Hey everyone! I really hope that you are enjoying Free to Be, the Witness's annual Juneteenth event. For the next part of the show, I am excited to bring you an interview that I did with Propaganda. If you don't know who Propaganda is, he is a poet, a hip hop artist, a spoken word artist, a podcaster, a media personality. He does a lot of different things that I'm probably forgetting, but the latest thing to be added to his list of accomplishments is author. He recently wrote a book called Terraform, Building a Better World. And so I had the opportunity to interview him about this book and just about some of his thoughts on life and on coffee and a lot of other different things. So this was such a great interview. I only had a very limited time with Propaganda, so I was really excited to be able to get it there, rattle off a few questions. It's on Zoom, but you know what? It's going to be great, and I hope you enjoy it. All right, can you talk to me about writing, about your writing process? I mean, you're a musician, you're creative, you're a rapper, you write lyrics, you write poems, you do spoken word and all that type of stuff. But writing that type of stuff versus writing a whole book, that has to be different, right?
Generally, like, I write to perform. So I'm thinking about how this is going to translate on stage. That's always like my first thought. Where like it hit me, you know, kind of partway through. That's like, oh, these words have to do all the work. You know, I'm so now I have to picture in my head, like, what does the inner voice sound like? What is your brain voice sound like as you're reading this? You know, and which was a very different process, you know, but was fun. It was fun to learn how to do this.
Wow, that's great. So what adjustments did you have to make?
Yeah, it was the biggest adjustment was to remember that, like, I am not controlling the pace of how fast you're reading this. But if I want to, then that means I need to figure out how to make that happen with just the words, you know? And that was like, oh, this is new. You know,
oh yeah.
How do I communicate that on the paper rather than from the stage? So that was, and one thing I usually do is, like, for most of my like spoken word stuff, I talk it out. Like, so you go to open mics and you workshop stuff, but like I write out loud. Like, I walk around and I'm writing it out loud because I want to see how it sounds. This time I was like, actually, you can't do that. Like, you have to do this in your head, you know, and was like, okay, because that's how you're going to read it. You know, so I'm like, okay, well, let me do it like that. Yeah.
Wow, that's really interesting to hear your process on some of that. So could you explain terraforming to me?
Would love to.
What how you do that concept in your book?
Yeah, so it's a science fiction term, you know, just nerdy term, and it's the idea of, like, when you find a distant planet, the process of making that planet livable is called terraforming. So I thought to myself, man, if I'm looking around Earth, like, it's becoming less and less livable. So maybe we should start a process here, you know, and what if that process is not just terrestrial? Like, what if it is sociocultural? And then what if it's family? What if it's community? What if it's personal? It's all terraforming processes. And so that's kind of the springboard that I kind of bounce off and carry the poetry and prose through. Just the idea of, like, building not only an inner world, but an outer world also.
Wow, that is deep. That is so deep, fam. One of our themes here for our Juneteenth event is free to be. And it's about kind of liberation and wanting to be free for Black folks to be able to be free. So how do you see this concept of terraforming, this concept of reshaping and making Earth, making America livable again for Black Americans? How do you see that liberative work, or that translating into liberative work?
I love that. That's a great question. And I think it has to do with a lot about the origin stories that we tell ourselves, you know what I'm saying? Not only as Black people, but as America as a whole. I just don't know how much of our identity we haven't had formed in relation to whiteness. You know what I'm saying? Like somebody asked me once, like, which was, I think I mentioned it in the book, like, can you imagine what is America if racism never existed? Can you imagine that? What is America if patriarchy never existed? And I was like, I can't imagine it. I'm like, jazz is because of segregation. Hip hop is because of racism. Like so much of what we became and have created was pinging off white supremacy. So for me, I'm going, what's my identity not tied to their problems, you know? And to me, it's like, that's the beginning of like, well, I need to tell a better story. I need to imagine a better future. Even the formation of white supremacy was in relation to how to keep us down, how to keep to separate themselves from us. So like you even had us in mind when you created this. So I'm like, I don't have to exist in relation to y'all. Me, like that's the beginning of that process. Imagine yourself, who you are as a person in your personhood, completely separate from white supremacy. What am I? I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a black man. And, I'm a black man that draws his origins not from the structure and formation of whiteness, but from Ethiopia. You know what I'm saying? And then you start seeing your longer narrative. And like part of like my passion with coffee is like, and I'm looping this around because it's the same answer to me, where I'm like, coffee was discovered in Ethiopia. And not only that, it only grow at the equator. So I'm like, so I'm like, now it's a justice issue. This is brown people stuff, So like, so now we need to start thinking about like, you're not finna kick me out of this hoity-toity, special. No, bro, like you drinking our product. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, so now it's like, and you don't get to own what is special and what's not, because it don't even grow in your land.
Wow. So I want to come back to that piece in just a moment. But you said something about imagination, and that was actually one of the questions that I had for you. So you're talking here about imagination and us trying to imagine ourselves outside of whiteness. How difficult that can be, because some of our culture maybe wouldn't exist if it weren't for us responding to our oppression. So jazz exists because of segregation. The blues exists because of lynching. We have all of these creative expressions that exist. Toni Morrison wrote, she wrote not to create a world that responded to whiteness necessarily, but she wrote a lot of her writings and stuff deal with some of those themes that come from anti-blackness, that come from colorism, that come from all those things. And then you're saying here, well, how do we imagine ourselves as more than that, and in a different space than that? So my question for you is, what are some steps that Black people can take, that us maybe as individuals or as a people can take to cultivate our imagination?
Man, I love that. I am one that like, as somebody that just loves culture, like look for parallels. I found a lot of like inspiration into like how to start this imagination from Native American culture and tribes, in that, the way that like they've been able to carry their cosmology and worldview even into now, despite just the purposeful ratification of them, they're just idea is like their idea that like, we still just don't believe humans can own land because they didn't make it. Like, it's not, you want to buy this land, it's not mine to sell. You know what I'm saying? Like, that still is baked into their, so they're like, they never lost that like tie to that. You know what I'm saying? So, obviously there's no one-to-one, you really can't make one-to-ones, but just this like idea of going, so you kept your cosmology, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, that's interesting, so I think one thing for Black people to do is like, like, don't lie to yourself about the fact that like, we as Black Americans, we are not Africans, that I don't know which part of this planet which part of Africa I'm from. I'm probably from all of it because of how the Middle Passage worked. You know what I'm saying? So I understand that. But that said, my curiosity about that land, you know what I'm saying, and about that cosmology, you know what I'm saying? I know, you know, we both Christians here, but like, you know, Israel went south before it went north. You know what I'm saying? So like, you know, that's us too, you know, 400 years in Africa before Constantine, you know what I'm saying? So like, you know, so let's like be okay with that. You know what I'm saying? And like, and amalgamate it all, you know, and like, okay, so what was happening there? Like, what a part of like, where's our cosmology in this? Where's our, you know what I'm saying? Where are our creations? What can I participate in? And for me, part of that was coffee, you know what I'm saying? Where I'm like, I'm participating in something that I know is deeply African, you know? And then how culture works, moving that forward. What am I carrying forward? For me, the dreadlocks, I could see you, you know, you got your natural hair growing. Like that's you having that imagination and just being like, this is who we are, you know, and you just continue to participate in it and continue to like think about the diaspora, like be curious about Haiti, be curious about the Dominican Republic, be curious about Honduras, and just, you know, everywhere that we landed, and just and amalgamate it into your imagination and just be like, these are ways that we've survived everywhere, you know, and continue to bring that into your home, you know, and hearken to it all, because the truth is we are all of it, you know?
Wow, that's great. So how do you see creativity playing into that?
The imagination part of like, you know, if I take a DNA test, I mean, like, what is that really going to tell me, except that, man, y'all really did just throw us on a boat and we, you know what I'm saying? Like, so that's not really going, but I'm interested in like, what is the Fulani, you know what I mean? And like, let me imagine like, what would we have been if we had flourished, if there wasn't like, you know, and like, what is an uninterrupted narrative, and how would like a modern, and in some places you have that, like thinking of like modern day Ghana, like use that, you know what I'm saying? And continue to be creative and just imagine, you know what I'm saying? And like, and I think that like before that, creativity comes from, in a lot of ways, the freedom to imagine. Like if you don't feel you're free to do that, one, because it's like, I mean, somebody got to pay the light bill. I get it. You know what I'm saying? You know, so there's like working for the margin, working, you know, to, you know, your Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you know what I'm saying? But I would say even in that, like, you know, don't stop dreaming. Even when you are just like working on survival, like practice dreaming, you know, even while you're trying to survive, you know?
Wow, that's great. So thank you so much for that. The last question that I want to ask you before we go, because we're running out of time here. But you mentioned coffee several times. So could you tell me, how does coffee play into all of this?
Woo! Coffee is, I don't know if you can see in the background, but of course I'm just like, you know, cut and dry, I'm addicted. Like I can't, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know what else to say. But for me, like the artwork and the art, like the artistry of like the complexity of what it means to like roast a coffee bean. It's as simple as water and beans and the amount of flavors you could get from it. But yeah, like I said before, like it grows at the equator, and it shows again this idea like this our ground, our soil is sacred. Like the earth is magical, you know what I'm saying? And when we just let it do what it does, it brings forth this amazing thing that's for everybody. And it's just such a metaphor of like the way that I feel like indigenous people around the world, again, it only grows at the equator, the way that we see the world. We're like, yo, this is a gift for everybody, man. We don't own this. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is beautiful. You know what I mean? We cultivated it. We're stewards. And like, I want to share this with you, you know, but if you finna like make this some sort of commodity, you know what I'm saying, that you could package and create a stratification, it's like, well, nah, fool. Like, you don't, it's not yours. You know what I'm saying? You know, but you're welcomed, you know? So I feel like it's such a, like, it's a metaphor of just, this is Madia's house. This is Black people. It's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this ain't your house. You can't just walk into my refrigerator.
Right.
But you're welcomed. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes, no, sit at the table. I'd love to feed you. You know what I mean?
Wow, that is so deep. Just the communal aspects of enjoying essentially what is water and which
Yeah.
water in a bean, but the communal
Yeah.
aspects and ownership and all
Yeah.
that. There's so much that we could develop from that. But alas, our time has drawn near, and it was
Yup.
such a great conversation to have with you,
Oh
Propaganda.
man,
Such an
thank you
honor
so
to be able
much.
to meet you. I'm a fan.
Appreciate
I'm
you.
a fan of the Red Couch. I
Oh
love. Is
man,
that
thank you.
the Red Couch? The Red Couch behind you? Like anyway,
That is the red couch.
that
Yes.
is the Red
That is
Couch.
it.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much, Propaganda. God
I
bless you.
appreciate you. Thank you.
I told y'all that interview was flames. I really hope that you enjoyed it. You are watching Free to Be. Stay tuned. Our past is full of untold stories, untold joys, untold triumphs, untold victory, untold defeat. Behind every picture is an untold story of rejoicing, of fear, of attainment, of failure. We often focus on the exceptional achievements of exceptional people. But what if we started to see Black history as the everyday accomplishments of regular people? What if we took our heroes off a pedestal and looked at them like ordinary folks? Our history is more than trivia about our accomplishments. Each generation breaks boundaries as they are pushed forward by those who came before. Our past is full of untold stories, but we will tell them.
I'm Adam Keeley in Fort Myers, Florida, and you're watching Free to Be, powered by The Witness, a Black Christian collective.
Wow. See, that's Shannon's bag right there. Whenever she starts talking about that, I'm like, where's the organ? Where's the full band? I mean, I need a praise break. I need something, because it's so true. And, I think of how many of us are just hoping for a student loan Sally Mayhack, to like clear our student loans and just everything. I'm thinking about just little things, how many of us are doing, nonprofit work or leading organizations on the side of our main jobs, or tri-vocationally, or whatever it may be. And so the fact that we're taking this step, and the fact that you've led us in this, is so important, and it cannot be overstated, and it cannot be, really pushed forward enough, that this is a historic moment. It is a historic moment, not just for our organization, but we believe for the broader Black Christian community. So this first project was the Witness Fellowship. And the goal was lofty, to find a handful of Black leaders and give them $100,000 over the course of 2 years, unrestricted funds. And you did that thing. But I want to talk about the fact the entire team at the Witness Foundation. Yes, that is so true. But I just want to talk about the fact that it wasn't easy getting down to 5.
My goodness.
It wasn't easy getting down to 5. People need to hear it wasn't that 10 people applied. Tell them how many people applied, Shannon.
We had 90 people. 90. And from all across the country. Organizations, small and large, thought leaders, you name it, people just working in just about every sector you can think of. And Tyler, you sat in on the interviews, you sat in on the decision-making process. Mm-hmm. This was excruciating. And it wasn't excruciating because, oh my goodness, I'm not sure what we're gonna do. It was because we wanted to fund so many of the projects, but we didn't have the resources to fund as many as we wanted.
Yeah, I got to a place when we were in deliberation where I said, why can't we find more people? You explain it to me. Why can't we change it? Tell me why we can't change it. Tell me why we can't expand it. Tell me why we can't double this. Because I was looking at people that, potentially that eventually did not receive the fellowship. And I was shocked. I said, this person could run the Witness. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, oh my goodness. Like we have, 20 people out of 90 that could run an organization like ours and do a phenomenal job. And we've got to turn away all 20 or 15 of them or 17 of them or 18 of them. And it was excruciating, but it also underscored the necessity for us to really make sure that the foundation and the work that we're doing here at the Witness Inc. as a whole is fully funded. It is extremely of paramount importance, but that's the negative side. That's the bad news. The good news is we got some fellows and they are unbelievable, Shannon. Shannon, they're unbelievable. They're exciting, exhilarating. I'm hype. I've got a big smile. I'm excited to market them, have them on the podcast, talk about them, talk to them. Tell us about these incredible fellows.
So I want to start with Stanley Frankert.
Hello, my name is Stanley Frankart. I live in Canton, Ohio. The name of our organization is Young Christian Professionals, and we birthed this organization just out of the need that we seen within the urban context. Our mission is to develop and dispatch godly leaders into every area of life, advancing the kingdom of God. And what I'm looking most forward to is the opportunity to learn from leaders, to glean insights and grow in my personal leadership.
Yes.
Stanley is doing work with men who are returning to our community from prisons. And Stanley will tell you that he himself, having been a felon, understands what it means to come back into a community. And you're trying to reclaim your dignity. You are trying to reclaim the economic tools that will help you not return back to what took you into that life, right? What does it mean to counsel people to have good families because there was somebody waiting for you during that time that you were incarcerated? And so Stanley's work is really important because it's about piecing not just that person's life together, but piecing them back into the community in a way where they are whole, they are protected, and they belong.
Yes. Yes.
And because of the fact that our community deals with over-incarceration at a rate that is an abomination, right? This is really important work that he's doing.
Yes, I'm so excited to welcome Stanley to the fellowship. And I believe he's going to add so much to this program and this cohort. I'm over the moon excited that someone in that space is able to be funded by the work that we're doing.
Then we have Dr. Tamira Lucas.
Hi, I'm Tamira Lucas. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, and I am the co-founder of Moms as Entrepreneurs. Moms as Entrepreneurs provide entrepreneurship training, resources, and advocacy to help create generational wealth in low-income areas through ownership and entrepreneurship. I am so excited to be part of the Witness Foundation Fellowship, and I am honestly looking forward to learning more, building great connections, and being able to really scale our organization so that we are not just impacting Baltimore, but we are also impacting cities around the United States.
Who is on the East Coast. Now, Dr. Lucas's work focuses on moms, and what she's doing is helping moms start their businesses because she understands that for a lot of women who are raising children, this idea of how they can have economic freedom that works for them, right? How do they do this in a way? What are the steps? There are things that you were taught all throughout your life, you know, your little side hustle, but how do you make that a full-fledged business in a way that will bring you out of poverty, that will lift you up and be a resource in your community? Because we know that Black women are starting small businesses at an incredible rate. But how do we do that well, knowing that the rate of small business survival past 5 years is really, really difficult? And so there she is bringing all of her expertise to lift up women, and she's ready to replicate this program in other cities across the US.
Yeah, I remember the first time I asked you after this, in the midst of interviews, I said, who pops so far? Like who's someone you're really excited about? And I hadn't had the opportunity to sit in on the interview with Dr. Lucas, but you mentioned her name. And then when you see her video, when you see all the things that she's doing, you know, you follow her on social, it is incredible work. And especially for this very, very core key demographic of Black mothers who many times are not being seen and being ignored and being disregarded. But the work she's doing is truly empowering.
Yes, and to have that kind of flexibility with your schedule out of your own business so that you can truly be present for your children at the same time that you're bringing in income, that's critical.
Yes, so critical. Yes.
The next fellow is Shalene Yui Booker.
Hello everyone, my name is Shalene Huey Booker and I currently reside in San Jose, California. I am the CEO of Youth Utilizing Power and Praise organization, where we seek to empower the whole being through the means of performing arts, fine arts, public speaking, and sports, with an emphasis on those between the ages of 6 to 25. I'm most excited about being a part of the Witness Foundation because I get an opportunity to learn and grow with fellow African American Christian leaders. No code switching allowed.
Now she's on the
Oh
West
my
Coast.
goodness. Yes.
Now she is committed to the arts and she is bringing young Black folks and she is training them and providing them the skills they need to promote the arts and to share in that. And we know what a creative people we are. And so it's really important to have that guidance that is rooted and grounded in faith. And that's what she's doing. She's bringing them, she's taking these kids, they are touring, they are going places. And it is amazing to see how she uses her faith combined with her love and her skill in the arts to bring that forward for young people. And that's critical.
Her work with teenagers, with young people, it's so close to my heart because having been a youth pastor in the urban context, it is so much that people, it's so much actually wanted to do that I didn't have capacity or time to do. And I was just thinking, reading through her application and seeing her phenomenal work, it's just mind blowing. Oh man, if I were around someone like, her, I would be able to like actually funnel these kids in here. And I was thinking, wow, how transformative it is for people in that community to have someone like her doing that work and on the ground with young people and actually walking with them and training them and giving them opportunities. We're very excited about having her on the team.
Yes. And then we have Andrea Levant.
Yes.
Hi, I am Andrea Levant and I live in Tempe, Arizona. I am the president and founder of Levant Consulting Incorporated, a disability-focused strategy and communications firm that teaches brands and nonprofits how to speak disability with confidence. I started LCI because as a member of the disability community, meaning the world's largest minority group, I realized that we are still left out of everything. And so I wanted to do my part to address that by supporting organizations in engaging with the disability community. And so I'm excited as a Witness Fellow to bridge disability in faith.
Yes.
Now, Andrea herself is a wheelchair user, and her work focuses on bringing equity and justice for Black folks with disabilities and helping the church really understand how to properly minister, how to incorporate folks that have disabilities into everything that we do. Now, that's critical because so often when you are marginalized, sometimes you don't realize when you may be marginalizing even a subset of your own population.
Mm-hmm.
And as someone who has people in my family who have disabilities, it's really critical to me that this is something that's lifted up. And so you have someone who's actively working to help the church understand, how do we do this? And how do we do this in a way that is honoring the God in each one of these individuals, as opposed to minimizing them? Or, as you know, in the Pentecostal tradition, our theology around healing sometimes prevents us from looking at people with disabilities as whole people.
You meddling now, Doc.
I'm just saying.
You meddling, Doc.
I'm just saying, we really need to think through that and what that means and how we honor the image of God in all of his creation.
Yeah, Andrea's work is so incredible. And I think also her reach is incredible too. And how many people are being challenged and changed by her work. It is phenomenal. And I think it was so important for us as an organization to enter into this work and to lean into this work, and how important it is for our individual congregations, our churches, our communities. I mean, I was reading things that she had said, and I was convicted. I was like, I'm not thinking about these things, and I should be, and let's change this together. So we're over the moon excited to have her as a part of the cohort.
Now, what's really exciting, Tyler, is the fact that we had donors who we reached out to and said, we want to start a pilot program, and we want to look at what happens if we do place-based work. Meaning, what happens if we can invest in a community that's ready for this kind of change and this kind of social embrace. And so Northwest Arkansas really stepped up. The Fayetteville area, they raised funding. And so what we have is we have 2 regional fellows from that area that we are investing in. And
so see, we gave y'all more than what you asked for. You see, we originally had 5, but now we got 6. See, people, see, this is what I'm talking about. Under promise, over deliver. I love this. Well,
because, we've got fellows working all across the country, but what does it mean to dig deep into a community?
Yes.
That where people can, on the ground, work with one another, shoulder to shoulder, and see what kind of impact uplift that can have. And so what's going to happen is we have Monique Jones.
Hi, my name is Monique Jones, and I currently reside in Fayetteville, Arkansas. I started an organization called CPR NWA. The mission of the organization is to revive the community following a pandemic through life coaching and case management. Super excited to collaborate with the historic St. James Missionary Baptist Church and the Witness Foundation to bring CPR NWA to our community.
Monique is working with the historic Black Baptist Church in the community, doing community outreach, working with them there. And so it's exciting to see what she's doing. She is a past president of the NAACP. She is truly a spokesperson for the Black community there. And so we're just so excited to be able to work with her and lift up her work.
Yes,
and then
absolutely.
We also have Joy McGowan.
Hi, my name is Joy McGowan. I live in Fayetteville, Arkansas. I am the co-founder of Resilient Black Women, an organization designed to help Black and brown women in Northwest Arkansas learn about mental health resources. Our goal is to raise funds in order to provide a scholarship discount for counseling. I am excited to be one of the 6 fellows for the Witness. I am most excited to learn and gain mentorship and executive counseling from leaders at the Witness. And I'm truly humbled to be here. Thank you.
Now, Joy is a licensed therapist, and her work focuses on bringing mental health support, particularly to Black women. And we know with what we saw during the pandemic that, and even what we just saw recently at the French Open with Naomi Osaka, saying, look, my mental health is critical.
That's right.
And so the more we can begin to have conversation about what it means to have good mental health practices in the Black community, particularly the Black Christian community. It's not just about praying about it and letting it go. It's about praying about it and getting some help if you need some additional resources.
Come on.
But we have to make it affordable. And so Joy's work is around making that affordable and accessible to the Black community.
Wow. 6 incredible fellows. This exceeded my expectations because I know for a fact how hard it is to pioneer this type of work. And when I saw these names after we had gone through this grueling selection process, I remember sitting back and saying, this is marvelous in God's eyes. Like, this is the Lord's doing, that these 6 are coming together to work for the betterment of our people. This is for us. This is for our people. This is for you who are watching. This is really, truly the advancement of Black Christian freedom, the advancement of what it means for us to step into the future and to sow those seeds and invest. So I just want to say on behalf of, I know I like to say we work across the hall from one another virtually, but on behalf of the entire Witness BCC team, I just want to acknowledge you and your entire team at the Witness Foundation for your tireless work, for handling a lot of stuff behind the scenes that people don't know, and for really leading this process in order for us to be introduced to incredible Black Christian leaders and then give them an acceleration into the next phase of their work. So bravo. I applaud you. I applaud you.
Thank you. I'm excited because they're going to get, in addition to the funding, they're getting coaching, they're getting mentoring, they're going to be part of conversations where, around the development of their nonprofit and the work that they're doing. We're expecting to see a lot of community engagement and seeing what this looks like and how it can continue to replicate itself. And we'll be sharing what we learn with your audience as well as others.
And so I think, as we wrap up, I think the misnomer would be people thinking, oh, you raised $500,000 in a short period of time. This is the success. This is the win. So you've met all your needs and no need to give, no need to worry about anything moving forward. You're good, right? And I cannot tell you how not true that is. This is a moment, and it's really a drop in the bucket to what we actually desire to do holistically as an organization. I mean, we've talked about this from the Witness Foundation perspective, but as Shannon knows, and as you all know, if you've been following us, we have lofty goals here as well. We desire to do some things at the BCC side that are actually going to be able to shape, I believe, the future of Black Christian thought and the future of Black Christian creativity and content. And we need help. We need your help. We need your partnership to be able to do that. And if anything in your heart has, been pricked or been encouraged by what we've done or what we're still doing right now, we need you to give. We need you to pray, and we need you to give. And I know we Pentecostal, we're not going to start the different lines, $5 line, $20 line. We're not going to do that. Not today, at least. Maybe at the conference. Maybe, that might happen. No, I'm playing, y'all. I'm kidding. But Shannon, where can they give? Because I think this is so important to give to the work that is happening here at the Witness Inc. overall.
Well, if you go to our website, you will see the donate button. As a matter of fact, I think the button follows you on every page. At least that's what we were trying to do. We don't want to miss an opportunity. My grandfather, who was a pastor, said, the gospel is free, but the lights cost. And so, we want Tyler to be able to buy his baby shoes. We want Allie to be able to do same thing on my side. We want to be able to support the work. Someone's got to organize it. Someone's got to send out the emails. Someone's got to make sure that people are where they need to be and things are happening. And so we want to honor the work of those that are laboring behind the scenes, who you may not see and you may not hear from, but they're doing amazing things and keeping the trains running on time, right?
Yes.
So please donate there. But we also have another event coming up that I'm pretty
Tell them about this.
about. I don't know anything about track, so I rely on Tyler to explain to me what is a split and what we are doing another event that we feel so important. It's called the Active Witness Challenge, and we are challenging people in the month of September to run, walk, bike 50 miles, and we're doing this in honor of the 56-mile pilgrimage that was done in Selma. And we feel like it's so critical to understand that because they walked, we can run. We have freedom because we stand on the shoulders of giants who went before us and laid the groundwork. And when we think about justice, when we think about our faith, we were never doing this on our own. But we don't want people to just simply do this from a distance. We want them to be engaged. And so that's why we're calling it the Active Witness Challenge. And so we hope that you will be involved. We hope that you will sponsor other people. If you're not able to run, that you will support, that you will tell others. But throughout the entire month of September, that's what we're doing. And so I hope that you will come and you will participate. I hope that you will look for ways to support the work that's happening. When you support the Witness Inc., you are supporting the BCC and the foundation.
Yes, you are.
That's really critical to understand. And so we want to be able to expand this. I know you probably heard Tyler talk about wanting to bring in more writers and doing more work and expanding the podcast. We want to go back through those 90 applications of people that we could not fund, because there are some sectors there of work that we really, really want to be able to support, but we can't do that without your partnership.
Yes. That's it. Look, pass the plate. What a plate at? Pass the plate. Listen, $10, $1, $100, whatever God leads you to give, $1,000. I don't want to limit you. 10,000, whatever it may be, it will be put to great use here at the Witness Inc. because there is so much happening. And this is just in one division of our organization. Truly transformative, historic work with these incredible fellows. Dr. Polk, thank you so much for joining us. This obviously will not be the last time that we have you over here at the BCC, and especially on an event like this where we're talking about free to be, talking about truly being free as Black Christians and walking in that freedom and experiencing that freedom. We had to bring you on to talk about investing in our freedom as well. So Dr. Pope, thank you so much. I appreciate you. And I look forward to even more updates and meeting these fellows in greater degrees.
Appreciate you, brother. Anytime.
How is Aretha doing?
Aretha's doing alright.
Just alright. Singing is sacred, and you shouldn't do it just because somebody wants you to. What's most important is that you are treated with dignity and respect.
You're special, Ree. You have a talent they call genius.
You better think about what you're trying to do to me.
How old is she? She's 10, but her voice is going on 30, honey.
Let your mind go, let yourself be free.
How many albums have you had?
4. And no hits.
I need you to focus and avoid frivolous distractions.
Honey, find the songs that move you. Until you do that, you ain't going nowhere. I need a change. I want to sing what I want to sing.
Okay.
Find out what it means to me.
You really like it?
We love it. Ree.
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 Ree, 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 ree.
It's really good.
I got a single by this new chick named Aretha Franklin.
To present Aretha Franklin Day.
You're not about to mess this up for me.
Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Aretha Franklin.
This song goes out to anyone who's ever felt mistreated.
I used to feel sure.
You need to take a break.
I know how to run my business.
Have you lost your mind?
Maybe I found it.
I believe I have the chills.
Do you see what she is? She's a miracle.
Hey everyone, I am here with Dante Stewart. This is such a momentous occasion. I have been following Dante for years now. Like it's probably been a good 4 or 5 years that we've been Facebook friends, follow each other on social media. We've tweeted at each other, we've messaged each other, but this is the first time that we have been together face to face, and I am so excited. Dante is a writer. You can tell us just a little bit about yourself, but what I know Dante for is a writer. And let me tell you, this boy can write. He can write. He's just even a writer. He is a wordsmith, and he has a book coming out that we'll say a little bit more about later. But this man can write. So Dante, tell me a little bit about yourself before we launch into our conversation.
Yes. So Allie, it's so good to be with you, my sister. Yes, I have from afar likewise have benefited so much from your brilliance, from what you embody, what you're doing in the social world is just absolutely killing and crushing the game. So I do count it an honor to be with you, and I'm very grateful and humble, that you called on me for this particular occasion. So a little bit about me. I am from South Carolina. I'm the son of Calvin and Deborah Stewart. I'm the youngest of 4. I am from South Carolina, raised in the white South Carolina dirt, from a small rural black town in South Carolina. And like you said, I'm a writer. I am a husband to my lovely, wonderful bride, Jasmine, and we have 2 children, Asa and Ava. Asa is about to be 3, and Ava today is actually 3 months. And so I serve as one of the ministers at the historic Tabernacle Baptist Church here in Augusta, Georgia. And I'm a student at Emory University, doing my master's in theological studies with an emphasis on modern religious thought and experience. And so, but most of all, I'm a writer. Like you say, I love to write. I'm a reader. I love it all, or whatnot. So yeah.
Yeah, everything that you've shared, it amazes me just how much we have in common. I am a country girl too. I'm from Missouri, so a little bit different than South Carolina. But of course, writing, did the seminary gig, all that type of stuff. So it's been great to inhabit this space and to walk this journey and to see your journey unfold. And of course, congratulations on that pretty little baby that you have. And it's such a wonderful thing to be able to get together. And I love how you framed your story, you framed yourself in terms of where you come from. So in terms of both where you come from geographically, but then also who you come from. And that's something that actually leads me a little bit into our conversation, because we're here, it's Juneteenth. We're talking about Juneteenth, and we're talking just about what that means for us as a people. And I think that an angle of this that often gets missed is Juneteenth it only really affected those people in Galveston. It only really affected a very small number of Black people compared to all of the Black people who were in the United States at the time, who had, a lot of them, many of them had been free for that whole time, that the enslaved folks that had just found out that were celebrating. But yet this is something that as a diaspora even, but specifically as Black Americans, this holiday, this tradition has been something that we have taken on in ourselves. And I feel like that there's something that's very deep and very ancestral about that, about kind of our collective memory and collective remembering. And even though you and I might not be direct descendants of those who were enslaved, we still have a connection to that history. We still have a connection to that story. So is there anything that you would like to say about that? What do you think about that? How do you frame that?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So I'm glad that you spoke of this connection, that we have, to one another on one level, but also this ancestral lineage that we are a part of. And so it reminds me so much of, on the theological level, so it reminds me so much of the Exodus. As the Exodus is, which would really be a critical starting point for understandings about both Jewish identity and a certain type of storytelling among the people, and how we understand ourselves and God's action within the world, but also, how we understand the way we orient ourselves to one another and orient ourselves to the world around us. And so on the level, for me, Juneteenth, as I tweeted today, is as much a theological story and narrative as is the Exodus story. It is a story of the oppression of the empire. It is a story of the exploitation of the body. It is also a story of the liberation of God, and in some sense, a profound belief in one's own future. And so I think, on a religious and theological level, there's significance for Juneteenth on that level. But also, I think on the way we tell the story of our country, Juneteenth is significant for the way we tell the story of our country. I was just reading, just got finished reading Dr. Peniel Joseph, brilliant scholar and great friend. He wrote a piece in CNN Opinion essay area about Juneteenth as the answer to Frederick Douglass' question, what is 4th of July to the Negro? And that Juneteenth represents a way for Americans to continually wrestle with the questions of both American inhumanity, but also the beauty of Black humanity. And so as Frederick Douglass tried to get the country to wrestle with the ways in which racial slavery and oppression was not just simply a aberration of what it means to be American, but fundamentally tied to American identity and American economy, and even American religion. Frederick Douglass wanted Americans to wrestle with that, but also the ways in which, Black people were able to create lives even in the midst of this terrible situation, where we were forced into a situation where we were viewed as, Charles Mills would say, second-class citizens. Our bodies and our labors were exploited, and we were continually struggling with and struggling against a structure of oppression that continually disrespected our lives and our liberties. And so for me, Juneteenth, can be an opening up for so many of us, but also can be a place of deep reflection and connection to our ancestors, as a way of so many of us as we would be around 4th of July or Christmas time, where we would be around the dinner table and people Black folk telling stories from back in the day. It's just a continuation of that spiritual and political practice of Black storytelling.
Oh, that's so deep. That's so rich. And I think that you hit on something that's really important there is the collective memory of a people. And I think that that's apt to connect that to the Exodus narrative. I know that you, we were having a conversation before this, and you were talking about some things that Zora Neale Hurston and Toni Morrison had said about this remembering. Would you like to share some of those insights? I thought that they were.
Deep. Without question. And I really don't think, we would be hard pressed to find a person or persons who recorded Black stories. It would be hard pressed to find a better voice who recorded Black stories than either a Zora Neale Hurston or a Toni Morrison. Both of them were very brilliant and beautiful chroniclers. So when we think about this story of Juneteenth, it's not just a story of what America has done to us, but it's the world that Black people created, and it's the world that Black people made. So I would like to think about it like this. White people made Blackness a curse, but Black people, we made Blackness a world. And so on one level, it's like, this is what they did, but this is what we did even in spite of that. And that is a starting point for how we understand the world and how we make the world. And so Toni Morrison would tell us, that the interior lives of Black people, the space beyond the logics of whiteness or beyond the white gaze is a space that can be formative and foundational for how we understand the world. And so the story of Juneteenth is not just the story of educating white people or getting them to do better or getting them to become better, though that is a part of it. When we talk about we want a multiracial, liberative, equitable, inclusive democracy, that is a part of it. But the most important part, at least for me, as I think about the way Toni Morrison writes and talks in this site of memory, the most important story is the way that Black people survived and loved and created a world beyond the ugliness of white supremacy.
That is all really good, and that's so deep. And I think that you talk about world building, and I feel like that Juneteenth is an exercise of Black world building. So just today, just right as we are recording this, I think a couple of hours ago, President Biden signed into law Juneteenth as a national holiday. In my opinion, it sort of feels like turning that into kind of like this mass market thing. So it's sort of like, we were like the underground people, like, we got the SoundCloud, whatever. And it's like, our SoundCloud artist then all of a sudden gets like a record deal and is on Spotify and Apple Music and Amazon and whatever. And so now it's like, I almost kind of wondered, like, does it kind of take some of the shine off of Juneteenth or whatever? So how do you feel about Juneteenth now being a holiday?
Yeah. I think there's cause, for both celebration and trepidation. So I think it depends on where we begin, where that news hits us from. And so, for many people who grew up, with, services and things like that, and events, for that was already happening. So this is not a new story. Like and I think this is something important for us to understand, is like, celebrating Black liberation and Black freedom may be a new endeavor to white people, but for Black people, I mean, that's just, it's something normal, to recount stories of freedom, to recount stories of life and liberty and love. That for many Black folk, in all our iterations, that is something that is constant, for the most part. And so to sign something into law as this, I think that's huge, because when I think about Charles Mill's understanding of racial injustice and racial justice, he says, that racial injustice works on three things: second-class citizenship, exploitation, and disrespect. And so for us to have a holiday signed into law as a public recognition for public memory can open up, as Penny wrote about so brilliantly in the CNN piece, can open up ways to reckon with, the Black story, and reckon with Black storytelling. It can open up ways for us to understand, our history and our collective history, and the ways in which Black people and the terror of white supremacy is fundamentally connected to the way we think about American identity. And so it can open up ways for us to think about that. It can open up ways for us to remember and to reclaim and reconnect with that story of the past. And so as I think about, disrespect, a holiday as public memory can change a situation of continual disrespect, where even if individuals are not acknowledging our story, we at least have our country or a subset of the country willing to make this a federal holiday. And so that does deal with, on some level, a racist disrespect. So because oftentimes many people disrespect our stories by denying them, evading them, and justifying our place within them. And so to do that is to deal in some way with disrespect. But the trepidation that Penny will write about and that Black people have been writing about for so long: Frederick Douglass, Toni Morrison, James Baldwin, James Cone, Audre Lorde, June Jordan, Toni Cade Mabara, all these people and contemporary people, Kiese Layton, Jasmine Ward, Robert Jones, Deisha Philyaw, all these wonderful Black writers and thinkers are always talking about trepidation when it comes to, our country celebrating people that they continually disrespect and oppress. So we can't just deal with disrespect, but we have to deal with reparations for the ways in which our labor and our bodies and our brilliance have been exploited. But we also have to deal with the continual ways that we are treated as second-class citizens. So we have to deal with healthcare. We have to deal with voting. We have to deal with education. We have to deal with economics. We have to deal with whatever experience of second-class citizenship that Black people that we continue to face, and housing discrimination, when it comes to things like that, when it comes to even something as fundamental as #publishers paid me. We have to deal with the ways in which Black people are still continually treated as second-class citizens. And so we have to realize on one level that, there is a reason for celebration, but there also is reason for trepidation in that moment as well. We have to remember that performative politics is not the same as Black liberation. We saw in 2020 that so many people, and I'm thinking in particular, of politicians who got out or on the streets or joined movements saying that they stand in solidarity with Black lives. But then ironically, when November came around, they stood side and side with white supremacy. I saw pastors and politicians and preachers and teachers and parents who claim and proclaim their love for Black people in 2020 while standing silently or passionately behind the insurrection of 2021. And so that's the type of trepidation, to be American or whatnot. To be American is to have a disordered love for the country and in some sense be both socialized and discipled that way. And so it's by design. And so for me, I think Juneteenth can uncover that and open that up, but it also is a reminder. If something has been designed this way, then obviously, or evidently, or hopefully, we can design it another way. We can deconstruct it. We can decolonize it and resurrect something better in the end.
It is not often that I am rendered speechless, but you were spilling all the tea there. And I don't want to say anything else because I just think that we need to sit in this moment. Because we need to sit. The doors of the church are open. Because that was a word, that was a revelation, that was a wig snatch, that was a prophecy, that was everything. You laid bare every mountain, you exalted every valley. That was it. That was the thing. That's Juneteenth right there. But Dante, it has been such a pleasure talking to you, my brother. It has been such an honor and a privilege. Before we go real quick, I am really excited because you have a book coming out. I believe it's October 16th. Is that right?
October 12th.
October 12th. See, I was having people 4 days late on that.
Oh,
no,
you need to get it.
You need to get it.
Get it before October 12th.
Is it available for pre-order?
Yeah.
Ooh, we can pre-order? Oh, Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Just type it in, shouting in the fire, and it should prayerfully it come. Hey, let's go.
But there we go.
Hey, that's my baby. That's my book baby.
Oh, I am so excited for this. Look, whenever I first saw the cover of this and saw the title, I wasn't shouting in the fire, but I was shouting in my living room. Listen, this is the truth. I'm so excited for this. I'm so excited for your book. Congratulations. I know that writing is it's a birthing process, and I am so excited to read your words. And thank you so much for being with us, Dante. God bless.
Definitely. All right.
Well, family, I hope that you have enjoyed our virtual Juneteenth event, Free to Be. We have celebrated, we have worshiped, we have had great conversations. It's just really a taste. Last year, we did a full day. It almost messed us up, okay? And we just did just a little bit for you to be encouraged. We know there are so many events happening, and we just want to say we value you showing up. We value you watching today. I just had one final word to give to our Black Christian audience. We do everything for Black Christians. Last year, in the midst of the pandemic, I shared something on social media, and I want to reconvey it to you because it's something I believe that you need to hear. It's something called Black Christians, You Are Important. Listen to this. I was sitting down earlier, scrolling through social media, and just shook my head with gratitude. Y'all are a miracle. You inspire me. The way you dissect culture, condense theology, harness humor, channel energy, raise conscious children, love with all your might, compliment each other, and praise God through it all. On top of that, you deal with microaggressions and racial trauma and antagonizing Facebook comments and racist relatives and imposter syndrome and so much more that we don't even see. And you're still here. In case people haven't told you lately, you are beyond beautiful, fearfully and wonderfully made. The world can't comprehend it, so they attack you for it. They even try to steal that beauty for their own benefit. But try as they might, they can't take it away from you. Don't quit. Keep going. You are important. The world needs you. I need you. I hope you take those words, you feel them, you inhale them, you sit with them. Maybe play that on loop if you need to always remember how important you are. Black Christians go through so much more than what people see. We navigate this with a sense of pride and purpose. And some of us are in different phases of our journey. Regardless of where you're at, you are valuable and you matter. So I pray that the God who saved us, the God who created us, the God who loves us, and the God who leads us into freedom will be with you. If for some reason you have not subscribed and liked all of our pages on social media, please go ahead and do that. The Witness, a Black Christian Collective on Facebook, the Witness BCC on Instagram and on Twitter. Of course, you can subscribe to our suite of podcasts, including our flagship podcast, which you heard a little bit of today, Pass the Mic, with my friend and founder of The Witness, Jamar Tisby. And if you feel led to donate to The Witness, we welcome all donations. Of all the things that we have been able to do and all the things that we are excited about this year, it is just a drop in the bucket of what we desire to do, how we desire to influence and impact your lives as Black Christians. You can go to thewitnessbcc.com to our donate page, and you can give a monthly or one-time gift. We just want to shout out all our recurring donors, our faithful witnesses. You matter. You mean so much to us. Thank you so much for funding this movement. We would not be here without you. Well, until next time, until our next live event, or even until next year for our next Free to Be Juneteenth virtual event, I just want to say thank you. We do all of this for you. Black Christians, happy Freedom Day. We'll see you next time. Peace.
I stretch my hands to thee. No other help I know. My Lord, my Lord, my blessings, if I should count them all, as countless as the stars, my Lord, my Lord. 'Cause you're the only power that can save this world today. Jesus, you're the only power that can save this world today. You're the only power that can save this world today. You're the only power, yeah, that can save this world today. Hey, we come to lift up the name of Jesus. Hey, it's a celebration.
Beautiful morning, you're the sun in my morning day. Nothing I wanted, who can I turn to? Beautiful morning, you're the sun in my morning day. You're the help I know. Nothing I wanted, who can I turn to? No other help I know. Who can I turn to? No other help I know. I wanna wake up with you in my beautiful morning. Who can I turn to? No other help I know.
couple hiccups, had a few slip-ups, dog, when I fell in the grease. Turn my life 180 degrees. 360, I'm a cheese. Let your light shine on me. I don't even need BVs. Say you got a cure for the streets. I'ma need a few CCs. I know you got that power. A little bit of faith for the Calvins. And you know your love so sweet. And I've been praying every night for some hours. But just know, I wanna wake up with you in my beauty.